How's it going, everyone? This is Paul Garcia from ProjectSpurs.com. Here to provide an updated salary cap update of the San Antonio Spurs' cap situation. Now that they've made most of their moves this offseason, barring any trades or waiving of any players. So kind of now that all the numbers have actually come in on some of the free agents they re-signed and added to the team, the projections are in, and we can kind of see where their cap situation stands both for this year and then for the coming years. So what I'm displaying right now is the Spurs' full cap situation basically going forward up until 2023-24 season. These numbers are all coming from bballinsiders.com, basketballinsiders.com, should I say. So if you want to know where those numbers come from, that's where they're coming from. So I'm just going to kind of just go through each player and see where they stand, this season, then also going forward, into the future and where the team stands. So let's first begin with DeMar DeRozan. He's making $27.7 million this season. He has a player option next year, as for that same amount. He has until June 29th to decide to decline or exercise that player option and play again for $27 million, or try to become a unrestricted free agent, which he would be one of the more attractive players out there, because it's not a very there's not a lot of marquee players, should I say, out on the market next summer in 2020 outside of like Anthony Davis, Draymond Green, Kyle Lowry is a name out there. So like DeMar would fit well in probably getting a max contract from a team if he does hit that unrestricted free agent market. So that is going to be something to watch. Something else to watch is whether or not he and the Spurs come to an agreement on an extension. I want to say that they have until October 22nd, which would be the day before the season starts, to figure out whether or not they're going to go through with an extension. But right now it looks like, with no kind of rumors coming out that there's any kind of extension talks, I don't think that's the plan right now for either side. So, that's something else to watch is, as the season goes along, do the Spurs look at trading DeRozan in the event that they think he might leave in the summertime? So that's something to watch with DeRozan. LaMarcus Aldridge is making $26 million this year. If he were to get traded, he does have a 15% trade kicker in his contract, so that's something just to watch in terms of looking at whether or not he were to get traded at any time this offseason. I don't think he will. I mean, this coming season, I don't think he will. Next year, he's supposed to make $24 million. However, it's partially guaranteed for $7 million. So the Spurs again have until June 29th to make a decision on whether or not they want to bring LaMarcus back next season. Rudy Gay re-signed for 2 years, and he's guaranteed both years at $14.5 million, as you can see here. Then in 2022, he'll have a $21 million cap hold. Patty Mills is still making $12.4 million this coming season. The next year, he's on the books again for $13.2. DeMarre Carroll was signed and traded from the Brooklyn Nets. He's making $7 million this year, $6.65 next year, and then in 2022, it's $7 million. However, only $1.35 million is partially guaranteed to that deal. So again, the Spurs would have a certain date in 2022 that season to determine whether or not they want to keep DeMarre for that third year of his contract, or just waive him and only take the partially guaranteed hit amount. Marco Bellinelli is making $5.8 million this season coming up and next. So this is a contract year for him, is what you would call it. And he'll be an unrestricted free agent next summer with $7.6 million cap hold. You have Trey Lyles, who just signed for the part of the middle of exception. So he's making $5.5 million this year. His deal next year is $5.5 million as well. However, only $1 million of it is guaranteed, and the Spurs have until June 30th to make that choice on whether or not they're going to bring him back for another year. So as I've kind of written on Twitter and also on Project Spurs, I mean, it's kind of like a low gamble situation for the Spurs. If he hits and plays really well, well, then you get him for 2 years, about $11 million. If he doesn't hit, well, then then you can just have him basically for 1 year at $6.5 million. Pau Gasol, this will be the last year that the Spurs are paying him $5 million because they waived him last season. If the Spurs were to waive a player or trade a player and open up a roster spot, keep in mind that they do have $3.7 million left of their mid-level exception, since they didn't give Trey Lyles the entire amount. So that's something to watch, just in case the buyout market gets really interesting with some player X, whoever that becomes, whether it's early in the season or like around March, February. Well, if there's a player out there that hits the buyout market that the Spurs want, well, the Spurs actually are one of the teams that has a lot of money to offer that player. $3.7 million is way more than what that player would get with the vet minimum. if he were to sign with another team that's kind of doesn't have that much money to offer. So that's something to keep in mind for the Spurs as they go forward. Jakob Poeltl's making $3.7 million this coming season. Next year he'll become a restricted free agent if they tender him a qualifying offer by June 29th of $5 million. He'll have an $11.2 million cap hold for that amount. Dante Cunningham, since he hasn't signed with another team, I kept his cap hold on the Spurs' books. But if he doesn't sign back in the NBA, then this would just basically go on to the Spurs' sheet for next year, and I'll move it to the next year's column, because with them as an over the cap team, they try to keep those cap hold as long as possible, unless they're going to try to sign somebody with cap space. But right now, that doesn't look like the projection. Bryn Forbes is also in a contract year. He's making $2.8 million this year, $5.4 million cap hold next season. Lonnie Walker is making $2.7 million. A date to watch is October 31st. That's when the Spurs will have they probably will exercise his team option of $2.8 million for next year. So that wouldn't be a surprise if they do that, just because that's pretty much expected. Luke Simonich, the rookie, is making $2.6 million. Next year $2.8, and then from there on he starts his rookie deal. DeJounte Murray's making $2.3 million this year. He's kind of in a contract year too. He could also have he can sign an extension too with the Spurs before October 22nd. But right now there's been no talks to that, and I really don't think it's going to happen, just based on the whole situation with him coming back from injury. He hasn't had a chance to show how much he's able to get back to 100%. And the most likely outcome is they're going to let him play out the season, Murray, and then next year in the summer he'll be a restricted free agent for $3.4 million cap hold. Qualifying offer, should I say, with a $6.9 million cap hold. So the Spurs will basically most likely let the market dictate how much they're going to pay DeJounte next year if they let him go into restricted free agency. Keldon Johnson, rookie, he'll start his rookie campaign here, $1.9 million this year, $2 million guaranteed next year, and then all those different type of options going forward. Derek White, he's making $1.9 this year. He, like Lonnie Walker, has a October 31st trigger date for the team to exercise his team option. They're probably going to do that. It would only be surprising if they don't exercise those team options on White and Walker. So basically, those players will eventually become guaranteed before next season starts. Pondexter as well hasn't really signed a deal with another team, so right now I'm keeping him, keeping his cap hold for now. But if he does, that cap hold would be renounced and eliminated from the Spurs cap sheet. If he doesn't sign in the NBA, and let's just say he goes and plays overseas, well then, or the G League or somewhere, well then his cap hold will just be added on to next summer's books. Donatas Motiejunas, he's basically going to sign already with the Shanghai Sharks in China, so he's not coming back to the NBA. So his cap hold will still kind of be there, that $1.6 million, but I'm putting it toward next year. If there's a chance that he wants to come back to the NBA like how he did this past season, like in March, the Spurs again would probably have to waive a roster spot to get him on the team, and they could basically re-sign him using those non-bird rights, or just give him a vet minimum deal. If he signs with any other NBA team in that time, well then his cap hold gets renounced from the Spurs. Chimezie Metu is making $1.4 million this coming season. His deal is interesting to watch next summer. It's only $1.6 million for next year, but only $500,000 is partially guaranteed. If he's waived by August 1st is his trigger date, according to Basketball Insiders. Dedrick Lawson, I don't put a salary here just because he's what we call an Exhibit 10 contract, so it doesn't really count toward the salary cap just yet, unless it doesn't look right now that he'd make that he'd crack the actual 15-man roster, or take away one of those 2A spots. So for now I'm not keeping his salary on the books for now. He's probably just a training camp invite. The Spurs can still invite 2 more players on training camp type deals, like Exhibit 10 deals. So there could be news coming out in the coming months if they add 2 more players to the training camp roster. Nikola Milutinov, I've moved his cap hold to next year, the following year, because Olympiacos and the Spurs have already come to an agreement that he's not coming to the NBA this season. David Lee, I know he's out of the NBA. They still have his $1.6 million cap hold. I'm just going to move it to next season. Joffrey Laverne overseas. Again, his is also getting moved over. Matt Costello, he had played in the G League, so if he ends up going on some sort of NBA team, his cap hold will get renounced from the Spurs. But for now, I'm keeping it over there for next year's cap sheet. Darren Hilliard, he's playing overseas, so his cap hold stays, beyond overseas. Stays for next season, should I say. And then the two-way contracts that don't really affect the cap sheet are Quindaria Weatherspoon and Drew Eubanks. They're both on 2-way contracts. Again, the only way that these guys become, would have any kind of impact on the cap sheet is if they play out their G League days, their two-way days, should I say, and then the Spurs want to give them a full guaranteed contract. Well, then that becomes a guaranteed salary. So, I mean, overall, when you look at the numbers, let's just take off some of these cap holds and see how far away the Spurs are from different amounts. So they're $14.6 million over the cap right now. They're about $8.8 million below the luxury tax. So you figure if they use that $3.5 million from the MLE, well then they're still pretty safe from making sure they're not a tax team. And then since they are hard capped by acquiring DeMar Carroll and also by using the mid-level exception, they're very safe. They're $15 million away from being from the hard cap, and that's important in terms of if they want to make it some sort of trade. They just got to watch to make sure they don't cross this $15 million threshold. Make sure that line doesn't get crossed during the season if they make some sort of trade. That's kind of what you want to watch if you're looking at trades for the Spurs. And then next year, right now on the surface, they're over the cap by $28 million, but again, that's taking into consideration all the different avenues they can operate. They have a bunch of unrestricted free agents, like I said, Marco Bellinelli, Bryn Forbes, and then a lot of the guys that are overseas or just haven't come back to the NBA. Plus, they have some options to make with, like I said, with DeMar and LaMarcus. DeMar might opt out if he goes to the season without an extension, and then LaMarcus, we'll see. I don't think they would waive him, but again, if they wanted to and try to get cap space, they could waive him and open up $7 million. I mean, only have a hit for $7 million. Same thing with Trey Lyles, with a hit for $1 million. So there's all sorts of ways that they can operate next summer. It could be as a cap team or a salary cap team. I mean, like I said, the free agent market is not. There's not a lot of names out there, marquee names that can really make an impact. So I don't think that the Spurs would try to get one of those free agents. I think they just hold off their cap space until the following summer. And again, here too, you see they're already $30.6 million over for the following summer projections in 2022 when the market is way better in 2021, 22. However, these are all cap holds again. So that when you start taking off these cap holds, just look at how much those numbers start changing. Right there, like they're just. When you take off their big contract players, they start having a lot of money that's accessible to them in case that they want to start going after free agents the following summer. So again, that's just kind of a brief overview of the Spurs' cap situation and what to watch for in these coming months. So for Project Spurs, I'm Paul Garcia. Thank you. Have a great day.